Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. Motor racing was back in full swing this past weekend, with Formula 1 back on our TV screens. But we also had Formula 2 and 3 from Bahrain, along with Indycar and Indycar NXT from St. Petersburg, Florida in the US of A. So let's break down this weekend's action and go over some of the major talking points. I've already covered F1, go check that video out. So now let's look at the rest, starting of course with IndyCar. St. Petersburg is a tight street circuit and usually that causes chaos, and chaos we got. A number of cars got tangled at the start of the race, and that led to a very early red flag. Felix Rosenqvist was the first victim, getting fed into the wall by Scott Dixon, and then everyone else was led like ducks to a slaughter. Santino Ferrucci turned Helio Castroneves, Ben Pedersen and Stingray Robb were involved, and poor Devlin Di Francesco got launched into the air. Not a good way to start 2023 for a number of drivers. Romain Grosjean led the way with Colton Herta in hot pursuit, but Herta's tyres dropped off and Grosjean had a good lead. The first 30 or so laps were pretty quiet after the early stoppage and restart, but after the first round of pit stops, it all went back to being crazy. McLaughlin jumped Grosjean and led, but Connor Daly was spun and we got a yellow. Then another airborne car. VK got run into the barriers, Jack Harvey followed him in, and Kyle Kirkwood got launched over both of them. Another caution. Then Colton Herta got shuffled into the wall by Will Power. So a lot of yellows in a row, but it really kicked off after the next round of pit stops. Grosjean came in a lap before McLaughlin. The Kiwi was the width of a gnat's eyelid ahead at the pit exit, but then the pair collided and their chances of winning ended in the wall. So disappointing for both drivers, but especially Grosjean, going for his first win. This was definitely his best drive in IndyCar, and it was not his fault that it ended in tears. There were not many cars still going round with 20 laps to go. In fact, there are so few cars left, I didn't think anything else could possibly happen. But then Joseph Newgarden burst into flames. Pato O'Ward led, but had an engine blip, and Marcus Ericsson got past. He led the last 5 laps and continued his crusade to prove I know nothing. This was a mental IndyCar race. Chip Ganassi won for the first time at St. Petersburg since Dario Franchitti in 2011. Callum Ilott got a good 5th place and only 12 cars finished on the lead lap. Even Argentinian rookie Agustin Canapino survived for a 12th place on debut. So many people could have won today, but it was the Swede on the top step, despite only leading for like 4 laps. Indy NXT came to us alongside IndyCar, and the rebranded single-seater series had some good racing to begin the year. It did not go well for Jamie Chadwick, who got caught up with Jagger Jones after he had been sent into the barrier. Disappointment for the British W Series Queen, but she was able to continue. Lewis Foster had a slide at the restart, and Jacob Abel got both him and Rasmussen for the lead. Pearson and Reese Gold would have separate crashes, and then Jamie Chadwick had another go at the same barrier as before. Maybe she left her lunch there at the first attempt. At the restart, Abel and Rasmussen both ran wide, and that let Roland Siegel into the lead. Then another crash with Matteo Nannini and Josh Green. Most of this race was seemingly run under yellows. Chadwick had incident number 3 at the same corner, but it was in avoidance of Christian Bogle and Kaminsky. Meanwhile, Daniel Frost from Singapore took the lead and the win. A bit of a shock for me, he was the only one not to either lead at some point or crash. This was a very entertaining race with a lot of incidents. The first NXT race is already better than Indy Lights. Formula 2 started this week. What did I say about it last week? Ralph Boschung has to be the most experienced Formula 2 driver ever. He has started 95 races. First racing for Campos back in 2017, and periodically returning to them almost every year since. He is not getting a Formula 1 drive. He's only got a handful of podiums from all those starts, and it's hard to imagine he's going to do any better than that in 2023.
But what a story for Ralph Boschung, who didn't know if he'd be able to continue his racing career last year. He did continue his career, and he takes his maiden victory in FIA Formula 2.
Well, I don't know what is up with Campos, but they have scored almost as many points in one weekend as they did in 2022. Ralph Boschung took his first win in 96 starts and followed it up with a second place in the feature race, and teammate Kush Maney scored decent points in both races. Colour me surprised. It was the two ART drivers, Victor Martins and Théo Pourchaire, who looked most impressive early on, both carving their way through the field, but as their tyres went off, it was Dennis Hager who began making quick progress, and the Norwegian claimed a very impressive second place. The second race started with a lot of contact. Richard Verschoor got turned around, both Tridents were in trouble, Dennis Hager got involved, and Martins and Vesti both retired. It was a mad first lap. Someone needs to check on Ralph Boschung's pets because he must have had a lot of rabbit's feet on him. He gained 8 places and would soon be up to second place behind Théo Pourchaire. It was a quiet race after that and a case of tyres. Some of the front-running cars would drop down towards the end as their tyres went off, and an incredible Zane Maloney would wind up in third after a great drive. Richard Verschoor recovered from his early spin to climb up to 6th, but no one got close to Théo Pourchaire. Finally, Formula 3, also from Bahrain. And what did I say about Rafael Villagomez? Rafael Villagomez returns for another season with the Dutch team, having scored his only points finish in his 2 previous seasons of Formula 3 with them in 2022. He crashes a lot, and he will continue that in 2023. I am right sometimes. Franco Colapinto led for the most part and survived multiple restarts, but he could not hold back the Campos of Pepe Marti, who would take the win. I don't know what's happened at Campos, they don't usually do well, but in Bahrain, in F2 and F3, they were fantastic. There were a few incidents, but it was a good sprint race. On to the feature. Gabriel Bortoleto led early on, but was passed by a Gabriel Mini, who had fallen back at the start. Unfortunately, he got a 5-second penalty that cost him victory. Tommy Smith would have a couple of incidents, but it was Alejandro Garcia retiring right before the end of the race and bringing out the safety car that demoted Mini to 9th after his penalty was applied. Gabriel Bortoleto won for Trident. There was plenty of good racing in Formula 3. Trident pair Bortoleto and Gota lead the way. And that was all the action from the past weekend. The Indycar race in particular was an incredible watch, but every race here was pretty good. The Formula 1 was honestly the weakest race of the weekend. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you enjoy the Indycar race in St. Petersburg? There is not a whole lot of racing on next weekend, just the start of Extreme E in its new format, and the Australian supercars take to the track, with the Camaros debuting against the Ford Mustangs. No Holdens in 2023, sadly. Remember to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.